Yo, what is up guys, your boy IzuKage here with the movie for What If Naruto Had the Curse Mark. Quick announcement, the channel now has different ranks for members, so if you want exclusive what ifs or, get what ifs early, click the join button and check those out. But with that all said, sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Talk to me next. Look, dirty, big body Benz, I got you. Scoop on the gun, get in here like a Mac. I can't fuck with these hoes, these bitches is true. I'm ready to do this, got niggas attached.
Naruto is running through the forest trying to escape them. This time, from one of his pranks, the villagers didn't find it funny. Naruto was being chased by them and he's trying his best to outrun them. So he's running and stops before he falls down in a deep valley with spikes against the walls. He looks back and sees their pitchforks sticking above the low trees, and Naruto quickly ran alongside the valley. Meanwhile, this is happening. Orochimaru is watching this chaos and is amused by Naruto's true fear. He watched as the villagers catch him and start beating on Naruto mercilessly, leaving him unconscious and lying on the ground. Orochimaru comes from his hiding place and sees Naruto there, but something peculiar happens. His wounds begin to heal at an accelerated rate. He could see the wounds literally closing right in front of his eyes. And Orochimaru was shocked, and now that he thinks of it, everything actually starts making sense. He heard rumors of Naruto being the Jinchuriki but never believed it. He thought the truth was the fourth sealed it within himself and died, or at least that's what the third Hokage told him. Orochimaru looked down at Naruto and licked his lips and said, "You will make the perfect test subject." Now, Orochimaru returned to his lab with an unconscious Naruto, and I should mention he hasn't been banished yet, he's still in the village. But Hiruzen is starting to get suspicious of his odd disappearances and reports of missing children, but he doesn't have a reason to put two and two together. So Orochimaru straps Naruto down onto the bed. Okay, let's pause for a second. Everything I say about Orochimaru just sounds so sus. Okay. After strapping him down, Orochimaru returns to his lab, where he has been developing a jutsu that would grant him immortality. It would revert him into a new body, but he has to find one fit for it. At first, his candidates were... He was testing it out at first, and his main candidate was Sasuke Uchiha. But with Naruto being the Jinchuriki, he's thinking that he could control it and become even stronger. Maybe even implant Sharingans into Naruto's body, making him immensely stronger. But after numerous experiments, Orochimaru had no luck. He had failed numerous times over. Every time he placed the curse seal on one of his test subjects, it would kill them from the power overload. And he thinks with Naruto's healing capabilities, he would be able to withstand it. So Orochimaru returned to Naruto and used the 5-prong seal to tighten the Nine-Tails cage so it wouldn't interfere with this whole process, and then bit into Naruto's neck. Naruto's body began convulsing, trying to rip itself free from the constraints, and this goes on for over 10 minutes until he falls still. 10 days later, and Naruto wakes up in his house. He was confused at what even happened, but as Naruto started to recollect some of what he was doing a few days ago, like being chased by the villagers, Naruto felt a sharp pain on his neck. And this wouldn't be a one-time thing. Naruto would often feel this pain out of nowhere. And as Naruto grew to the age of 8, he had no more run-in with villagers and stayed on his best behavior. Not of his own accord, but he felt as if something is guiding him to do things he would never do otherwise. And by now, Orochimaru was caught and banished from the Leaf. So Naruto starts the academy and he sits towards the back of the class. No one really cares much about him since his antics died down and he isn't as infamous, you would say. So soon Iruka comes into the class and he looks on his students and he's pretty happy to see everyone could make it to their first day. So he quickly takes roll call, and after that they start some basic lessons. And you all know whenever this scene comes up, you get a quiz as well. So the question is, what character in Naruto has the strongest Susanoo? I actually think this one is pretty hard, so here's a hint. Whatever you're thinking right now, it's wrong. So don't go with your initial thought. Actually think about it for a few minutes. But anyways, Naruto is taking notes like a good student, and he looks up and sees Hinata staring at him. She quickly snaps back, but Naruto found it weird. Anyways, as the day goes on without much happening, just the usual school stuff, they have lunch, students socialize, while Naruto just sits and eats by himself, which he doesn't mind. He likes it this way. So, time skip 5 years, and during this time, Naruto had been keeping to himself, just trying to become a genin. He did okay in school. He's not a scholar or anything, but not bottom of the barrel. So when it comes to the graduation exams, Naruto is pretty nervous. He could barely perform any jutsus the night before when he was practicing, let alone expect to fight. So Iruka enters class, and with a tear dripping down his face, he said, "It's with sadness in my heart, I have to say, this will be our last days together as a class." And some students shared the same sentiment. Iruka was a really fun teacher. Even though the topics consisted of ninjas getting their heads lopped off, he managed to make it fun somehow. So, Iruka started to explain all the facets of the exams to come. First the written test, then the accuracy training, then finally sparring with your classmates for the title of Rookie of the Year. Naruto, though nervous, was prepared. So Iruka handed out the test papers, and when he got his, Naruto immediately started putting all his brain functions on overdrive. Some of the questions he had no idea what he was doing or where to even start, but he tried his best, and after an hour and a half, he completed it. So Iruka collected the papers and instructed everyone to go outside. Naruto and the others got to the field with the sun beating down on them. The students wanted to quickly get this over with, and Iruka followed behind them with a few pouches of kunai and shuriken, and this always got them excited. So first up was Sasuke. Sasuke, how should I say this, was just a natural when it came to anything shinobi related. He jumped into the air and spun, throwing the kunai and shuriken simultaneously and hitting all the targets dead on. All the students were captivated by this, and Sasuke, being the cool emo, he just lands and walks off without saying a word. The girls almost faint but catch themselves. So more students go and they do decent. Then when it comes to Naruto, like most, he just stood there and threw shuriken one by one and kunai one by one, missing around half of them. So he did average realistically. So Naruto just puts his head down and walks off. So once everyone was finished, Iruka brought them over to the fighting arena. He started matching up students to go against each other, and the first fight was Sasuke versus Naruto. The girls had full confidence in Sasuke and actually felt bad for Naruto. He would be humiliated on such a public stage. So the two face each other to fight, and Iruka says, "Hajime," or begin. Naruto, timid, tries backing away, but Sasuke was quicker than him. He grabbed Naruto and flung him over his shoulder, slamming Naruto into the ground without mercy. From the force, Naruto's lungs were forced to exhale and he coughed up spit. Sasuke then mounted Naruto and started beating on him, punch after punch. Naruto could feel his jaw becoming dislocated and cracked. And that's when Naruto finally had what he needed to activate the curse mark: rage and anger. Naruto was tired of being left behind. Now he was going to show everyone not to mess with him. A burning pain shot through Naruto's neck and shoulder as he screamed in pain. Sasuke was confused and got off of him, but after only a few seconds, it subsided. Now, black markings started covering Naruto's face, and Sasuke was taken aback, but this wouldn't stop him from winning whatever disease Naruto had. Sasuke tried punching Naruto while he was still on the ground, but Naruto grabbed his fist and the two hands started to shake, trying to overcome the other's strength. Naruto kicked Sasuke in the stomach and flipped him over. He got to his feet and now Sasuke's fangirls were booing Naruto for hurting him. They're laying a finger on him. Naruto looked down at Sasuke and said, "Finally, I realize it, Sasuke. What makes Shinobi so strong? Hate." And Naruto rose both his hands, interlocking his fingers, and slammed his fist into Sasuke's stomach, mimicking the force of a sledgehammer. Naruto laughed and kicked Sasuke aside, while Sakura watching couldn't just stand there and watch her Sasuke-kun be beaten. She ran in, but Iruka tried shouting at her to come back, but blinded by her love, she didn't. Sakura ran to Naruto and started punching at his back, saying leave him alone, and Naruto glanced over his shoulder and saw her and muttered, "Weak." And he backhanded Sakura into the wall bordering the school, leaving an indent in the wall and Sakura bleeding. Naruto was shocked at his strength. What was that? He looked at the group of academy students and they were in fear. Many ran while others were frozen. Iruka shouted, "Naruto, what are you doing? This isn't you." Naruto shouted back, "You know nothing about me." And he ran at Iruka as well, so fast he barely had enough time to react. Iruka used substitution and Naruto punched through the log. Naruto said, "You can't keep running, Iruka-sensei." Naruto reached into the pouch Iruka laid on the ground with the kunais from the previous test and held them in his hands. Naruto stood still waiting for the perfect timing. Then, quickly he threw them into a tree nearby and Iruka's screams of pain could be heard as he fell down. And Naruto walked slowly towards him. But then Hinata jumped in front of Iruka with her arms extended and said, "Naruto, stop! I know you're not like this." And Naruto said, "Hinata, move." She pleaded with him, "Naruto, please, I'm the only one who cares about you. Naruto, I like..." But before she could finish, Naruto neck chopped her. Naruto now turned his attention to Iruka, and as he walked closer and closer to him, Naruto's body felt numb and he fell over headfirst into the dirt, unconscious. Naruto woke up in a dark room lit by a single candle. He tried moving but realized he was chained by the arms and legs, so he couldn't go far. Naruto's memory slowly began to come back, and even though he wasn't in that influenced state because, alright, I should mention this, Naruto's actions are being controlled but not directly, but false motives are being implanted into him through the curse mark, so his overall view on the world and basically everything is being changed because of that. So Naruto knew it was obvious where he was, a cell. So Naruto laid on the cold hard stone floor for hours before a sound of a heavy metal door shutting echoed throughout. Naruto heard footsteps coming and saw the Hokage robe. It was Hiruzen. Hiruzen was frantic and he opened the cell door and ran at Naruto. He thought he was going to be attacked, but he embraced Naruto in a hug. He said, "The council has decided to kill you, but I won't let it happen, or else your father died for nothing." He began to unlock Naruto's shackles and Naruto rubbed his wrist and Hiruzen said, "Follow me." Naruto just did as he was told and he took him to a opening, and this place was underneath the Hokage mansion and there were numerous emergency exits. So Hiruzen then heard people coming through the door and told Naruto to hurry up. So the two ran and took one of the exits to the forest of the Land of Fire. Hiruzen took out scrolls and said, "This is filled with essential things you'll need for survival." He turned to return to the village before suspicion was raised, but looked back at Naruto and said, "Live for your mother's sake." And Hiruzen disappeared in a cloud of smoke. It was a clone. Naruto looked down at the pile of scrolls in his hands and thought, who are even my parents? Why would Hiruzen just stick his neck out to save him anyways? But little did Hiruzen know, he should have followed the council's advice in taking out Naruto when he had the chance. Now free, Naruto sought power, but before that, he needs to find shelter. Somewhere to stay. So Naruto went on his scavenger type lifestyle and he found a pretty small cave, but good enough for him alone. So he released some of the scrolls, and in them they were filled with equipment from packages of ramen to spark rocks to make fire. So Naruto set up camp and ate a ramen package. So for the next few days, this is how Naruto lived. He would venture out to find anything and find shelter for the night. But while searching, Naruto felt drawn to a certain area and he followed. But this was a long journey which took weeks since Naruto was just walking. Now back at the village, the clan heads and civilian councils were in chaos trying to find where Naruto went. They all came into Hiruzen's office saying he should send his Ambus to find him. Hiruzen initially refused, but when they started saying how he seemed suspicious, like he should just send the entire fleet to find Naruto, so Hiruzen relented and he sent a scroll to Kakashi, who he knew would understand the situation, and to keep the council happy, of course. Back with Naruto, he arrives at a clearing in the forest when he stumbles upon a tree, but on further inspection, the color looked darker and it looked shiny. Naruto went to check it out, and when he did, he realized from tapping on it that this was metal. Naruto tried feeling around for something to pull on, but that's when he felt a slit and opened the door. Naruto looked in and it was a staircase going on the ground. He was hesitant at first, but if this is where he feels he must go, it's most likely going to aid him in the end. So Naruto went down and he stepped into a hallway. It seemed almost endless, the lights were dim, and he could hardly see anything a few feet in front of him. So Naruto kept close to the wall, and Naruto was walking for quite a while when he heard a voice coming further down the hallway. So he continued and it became louder and louder. Naruto saw a door open slightly with white light coming from it. So as quietly as possible, he crept around to look inside and saw two people working on a body on an operating table. One had black long hair and the other short silver hair. Naruto was intrigued by what they were doing, but forgot that other people may be roaming around, and that's when a voice from behind him spoke. "Intruder!" Jirobo of the Sound Fork clasped his hands together and said, "Earth Trap!" The ground underneath Naruto started to shake and a dome surrounded him. Orochimaru and Kabuto went to check out what was going on, and Jirobo told his master that there was an intruder. Orochimaru licked his lips and said, "So he's finally here. Now, Jirobo, let him go. He's going to be your new teammate after all." Jirobo looked confused but followed orders. Naruto was sitting down and Jirobo walked up and extended his hand and said, "Welcome to the team." So we last left off with Naruto sneaking into one of Orochimaru's hideouts and meeting him, Kabuto, and Jirobo. Naruto grabs Jirobo's hands and, gets up, and Orochimaru said, "So, you're finally here." Naruto raised an eyebrow and said, "Who are you?" And Orochimaru chuckled and said, "From now on, I'll be your master. I can provide you with power beyond your imagination." And hearing this raised Naruto's curiosity, and he had no choice but to accept. But before they start doing anything, Naruto had to go through the incubation period. I'm just calling it that. I'm not actually sure what the name of it is, but it's when they put Sasuke in the barrel thing to make his curse mark stronger. So yeah, Naruto did that, now unlocking his curse mark stage 2. Just look at the PNG on screen, but Naruto had long red hair, sharp claws, and instead of wings, he had tails. Two very destructive tails. Imagine Kaneki's Kagane from, Tokyo Ghoul. So Naruto for the following weeks would go on to train with Orochimaru, different elements, but mainly lightning due to his affinity to it from his father's side. And Naruto learned many lightning jutsu like Chidori. So 1 week before the Chunin exams, and Orochimaru called Naruto into his lab. He walked in and bowed on one knee for Orochimaru. He said, "Naruto, I have a gift for you." Orochimaru then took out two Sharingan eyes in a test tube just floating around in a liquid. At first, Naruto was kind of worried to, rip out his own eyes and replace them, but Orochimaru assured him that they just work like light bulbs. You just screw out yours and screw in a new one. So while transplanting the eyes, Orochimaru couldn't control himself. He was grinning with joy. His hard work will soon pay off when Naruto's body is his. So after Naruto healed, Orochimaru told him about his plans to invade the Leaf. And after that conversation, Naruto returned to the Sound Four to inform them of their new mission. Naruto's power is now so great that he's the leader of the group, even though he's only been a part of it for, 3 weeks? So Naruto told the Sound Four that Orochimaru wants them to go to the Leaf and plan out their attack. So after a day of rest, the group sets out for the Leaf, and the entire journey there, Toyuya stayed close to Naruto. She felt more comfortable around him since she found out he's also an Uzumaki. I should say this isn't canon, but a lot of things point to her being Uzumaki, red hair, summoning techniques, and can control demons. And if you remember, the Uzumaki clan had a lot of knowledge and a whole mask collection of demons. So personally, I don't think she is, but for this what if, she is. So the Sound 4, technically the Sound 7, made it to the Leaf, and the members are Naruto, Toyuya, Jirobo, Sakon, Ukon, Kidomaru, and Kimimaru. The group splits up into teams of 2, Team 1 being led by Naruto, and their job is to spy on Eruzen and gather as much information on the Chunin exams beforehand as possible, while Team 2, led by Kimimaru, spies on Team 7, mainly, Sasuke. So this goes on for days leading up to the Chunin exams, and Naruto's team finds out a lot on the different stages of the exams, and all of this just to figure out when is the best time to attack. So while the Genin are in the first stage, the Sound 4 reconvene and return to Orochimaru's hideout with the news. Naruto enters his sleeping quarters, and when he answers the door, Naruto says, "Lord Orochimaru, we've completed our mission." Konoha's Chunin exams had 3 stages, and in the 3rd stage, most people will be spectating, leaving the village nearly empty, and this is the perfect time to attack. Orochimaru says, "Well done, Naruto. You will soon have time to test out your new abilities." Naruto frankly couldn't wait. So 1 month time skip, and during this time, Naruto and the Sound 4 have made many trips to the Leaf, planting explosive tags and working with the Sand Shinobi. So today is finally the day, and the Genin return after their month prep for the 3rd stage of the Chunin exams. Naruto and the others watch the matches from the roof above the arena, waiting for the signal to start the Konoha Crush. Sai, who took Naruto's place in this, beats Neji, and the other matches go about the same, including Sasuke versus Gaara. After Gaara got stabbed by a Chidori, Gaara began to transform into Shikaku, and when he was in his half Shikaku state, Naruto said, "We need to start now. Toyuya, cast the Genjutsu. I'll be going to the village to have some fun." Toyuya cast the Genjutsu, putting everyone in the stadium to sleep, and Naruto landed in the streets of Konoha. Explosions started going off all around the village, killing hundreds. Naruto smiled. This is what payback feels like. Naruto saw a group of villagers running in fear in his direction, and he smiles. Naruto weaved hand signs and said electro circuit. The ground was electrified, and all 20 villagers in front of Naruto were killed. Naruto activated his curse mark stage 2 and went around using his claws to rip people apart, even with his tails. And by the end of it, his body count was approaching 100. But then Naruto's curse mark burned, and this is a sign. When he returned to the arena, in the distance, he saw a fully formed Shikaku going against a massive toad. But Naruto's attention was drawn to the barrier when Tayuya called out his name and said, "Orochimaru wants your help, hurry." The Anbu who were watching the fight saw Naruto and chased him, but Tayuya quickly made him enter the barrier. So Naruto watched as the sword slowly pushed into Hiruzen's chest, and Orochimaru's arms were turning a dark color. Naruto ran in quickly and shoved the sword through, causing Hiruzen to fall over, and the Reaper Death Seal faded away, but still Orochimaru lost the use of his arms. Hiruzen looks at Naruto, trying to hold back the bleeding from the sword, and says, "Naruto, you're not like this." Naruto said, "You don't know anything about me." Hiruzen, with his final breath, said, "I do. Minato and Kushina trusted me to protect you, but I failed. Please, Naruto, do the right thing for your parents." And Hiruzen slowly drifted away. Naruto reflected on the destruction he caused to the village that his father once swore to protect, and he started to feel conflicted. His mind is telling him no, but his body's doing the opposite, just egging him on, telling him to keep doing what he's doing. And Naruto held his head in pain and screamed. Orochimaru walked over to Naruto and said, "Stop all your whining. Look at my arms, help me." Naruto stared at the ground and breathed heavily. He said, "I'll kill you." Orochimaru said, "What? You dare disobey me?" Naruto's curse mark started covering his body, and with his long nail, Naruto quickly turned around and swiped at Orochimaru, cutting his cheek. Orochimaru stumbled back, but Naruto got up and said, "I'll finish you." Naruto weaved hand signs and said, "Chidori." He dashed in front of him in seconds with his Sharingan activated and shoved the Chidori through his heart. Orochimaru coughed up blood and said, "Remember, I made you, and you always be in debt to me." And he coughed up again, causing blood to fly out of his mouth, and fell over dead. Naruto wiped off his blood off of him and looked at Hiruzen and said, "I'll make up for my sins." Actually, for this part, I might retcon it. I'll put up a poll tomorrow asking if you guys want Naruto to go the redemption route or remain evil. So the sound for don't know what to do at this point, but Naruto is their leader and they followed him. He was contemplating their next move, but when they dropped the barrier, Jiraiya, Kakashi, and many Anbu members surrounded the group. Jiraiya said, "Surrender or you'll be killed." But as he's saying this, he focused on one of the members in the back. Yellow hair, blue eyes, whiskers. He said under his breath, "Naruto?" Jiraiya was shocked that Naruto would join Orochimaru. He had a hard time believing it, so Jiraiya tried being kind to them, saying if they surrender, he'll make sure nothing bad happens to them. They'll just be put in holding cells, and Naruto said to his group, "Let's just go with them. If they want us dead, they would have killed us already. Plus, that's the legendary Sannin Jiraiya, the Toad Sage, and the copycat Kakashi. Even if, he were to try, Naruto doesn't think he'll be able to take them down." So, the Sound 4 agrees, and the Anbu members rush in, placing restriction seals on their arms, and took them to Ibiki, who, puts them in the cells. This is where the Sound 4 stayed for weeks, while on the outside, Jiraiya and Kakashi were the main leaders in the cleanup efforts. But while doing all of this, they both realized that there were some severe casualties, or many people just severely injured, so they need a healer. Jiraiya had no idea where to even look, but then he remembered the other legendary Sannin, Tsunade the Slug Sage. So Jiraiya would go on it alone trying to find her, but he wanted to get to know his godson. So one day Naruto is just chilling in his cell when Jiraiya walks up to the main cell door and asks Naruto, "Do you want to get out of this place? I need you to help me find someone." Naruto is like, "What's in it for me?" Jiraiya said, "I mean, you get to get out of this place. I don't think you want to be staying in a cell for the rest of your days." And he sorta did have a point, so Naruto decided on it and told his team that he'll be back. He'll just make sure everything's alright on the outside. So Naruto and Jiraiya departed on their journey to find Tsunade. The entire walk, Jiraiya tried making small talk with Naruto, mentioning books, women, just anything to try and get his attention really. But after a few minutes of silence, Naruto said, "What was my dad like?" Jiraiya was taken aback and thought Hiruzen must have told him. And Jiraiya looked up in the sky and said, "Minato was my favorite student. He was noble, hardworking, and best of all, a good dad. He sacrificed his life for you, Naruto." And Naruto hearing all of this, because he goes into more detail, and Naruto hearing all of this was surprised. He had no idea that that's what it really took to be a Hokage or to be held to that regard. So Naruto still remained silent, but this impacted him in a really real way. So the two stops at bars, ramen shops, just any sort of store with pictures of Tsunade and showing to the workers there, asking if they've seen her before. And they do this for tens, almost 100 shops by now, and have gotten no luck. So Naruto and Jiraiya end up in the same town as they did in canon, and Naruto is booked into the same inn. The two go out that night to check some bars because Jiraiya knows Tsunade as a gambler, drinker, so what's a best place to check than a bar? So they did, and as soon as they walked through the door, Jiraiya could recognize her from a mile away. That blonde hair. Jiraiya said, "Tsunade!" And Tsunade, who just lost another card game, looked around all drunk like, "Who's calling my name?" And when she turns around, she's like, "Oh, it's you." Jiraiya walks up and says, "Whoa, what's the sad face for?" Tsunade said, "What is it, Jiraiya?" So Jiraiya actually got serious and said, "The Leaf Village was attacked and we need a healer there, but no one's as capable as you." Tsunade said, "You can find some other person to do it. I have better things to do." But then Naruto chimed in and said, "Are you really serious?" Tsunade's like, "Jiraiya, who's this kid?" So he explains that Naruto here is Minato's son. And Tsunade actually couldn't believe it. She's looking at Naruto like squinting her eyes, and then she's like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense now." So Naruto continued with his point, saying Tsunade is selfish right now. She has the capability to heal almost everyone in the village, yet all she wants to do is drink and gamble her life away. Is that really something her grandfather would want to see? And Tsunade gets angry and slams the desk and says, "What do you know about my grandfather?" Jiraiya came in between the two of them and said, "Okay, you two, we can settle this some other time. Now, Tsunade, seriously, we need your help back in the village, so is it a yes?" Tsunade sat back in her chair and took another shot and said, "Whatever. Sure, I'll do it." Jiraiya had a big smile and said, "Well, great. We'll head back in the village in a week." So the next day comes and Jiraiya is out, he's enjoying the little time he has out of the village, getting some research done, while Naruto is in the inn still, doing some light training, when Naruto gets a knock on the door. And right now he's just thinking it's Jiraiya, so he goes to it and he opens the door, and when he does, he sees two tall dark figures in black robes with red clouds on them, and one of them spoke, "Naruto Uzumaki, you're coming with us." We last left off with Naruto opening the door for someone and sees a pair of Sharingan staring right back at him. And Naruto seeing these, this caused his to activate for the first time, straight to 3 Tomoe. And Itachi seeing this got angry. He kicked down the door and said, "Where did you get those?" Naruto didn't even know what he was talking about, and Itachi goes to attack Naruto, but for some reason his movements are slowed. Naruto is seeing them way slower than they're supposed to be, and he can easily read it to dodge. Naruto is confused like what this even is, but he won't back down from the fight. So his curse mark starts covering his body, and Naruto dodges all of Itachi's attacks, surprising him and Kisame, who was intrigued by this kid. Itachi burst into crows, but Naruto weaved hand signs and said fire style, great flame, and a stream of fire came out of Naruto's mouth, burning all the crows. Itachi tried casting a genjutsu on Naruto, but it failed, and he reappeared behind Naruto, who realized this and jumped to create space between him and the enemy. Naruto started eyeing down Itachi, and so did Itachi to Naruto, and for a few seconds it was just complete silence. Then Itachi turned to Kisame and said, "We're going." Kisame said, "Huh? We can take this kid right now." And Itachi glared at him with his Sharingan and said, "We're going." Pain doesn't even need him yet. And Kisame knew there's no arguing with Itachi, so he reluctantly turned around and started walking off. Itachi looked at Naruto and said, "It took me a while to see it, but take care of Sasuke for me." And Naruto was confused what Itachi was even talking about, but at least he doesn't have to get into a serious fight right now. So, the next day rolls around and Naruto returns to the Leaf with Tsunade and gets put back into jail, while Jiraiya and Tsunade help rebuilding efforts in the village. While in jail, Tayuya asks Naruto, "So, what now?" Naruto looked at the group of ninjas and said, "If you can't beat him, join him." So during the 3-year time skip, Naruto and the Sound 4 were allowed to roam the village but had to be supervised by a Jonin or higher. And during this time, they tried their best to make it up to the villagers for what they've done. And for the first year, they all kept this burning hatred they had for them. You know, the villagers kept towards the Sound 4. So Tsunade was chosen to become the next Hokage, and with this, she made Naruto and the Sound 4 work to protect the village. They had to do dangerous missions she wasn't even comfortable sending Anbu on, like assassinating high-rank members of other villages, even mass genocide. Even though all these missions were really dangerous, Naruto, it was worth it to him. He's on the front lines working to save what his dad gave his life to protect. So after the 3 years, Naruto and the Sound 4 were actually on pretty good terms with some of the more official members of the village, like Tsunade, the elders, and Danzo. You see, Danzo most times would be the one instructing Naruto's team to go on missions, like he would give them the mission details. So how it would go is Tsunade would tell Danzo what to do, and Naruto and the Sound 4 would just report to Danzo to do whatever, because sometimes they do work with the root members, so it just makes the whole process easier. So at this time, it would be around when Naruto returns to the village in canon. So Danzo is in his office when something came from the ground and appears in front of him. Danzo immediately went on the attack, but this black and white creature said, "I'm not your enemy." And Danzo lifted up his sleeves, revealing his Sharingan, and said, "Why shouldn't I kill you right now?" And Zetsu said, "Because I have a deal to make. I know all about the operations you're running down here, and what you're trying to do to get the Hokage seat." Danzo's eyes widened and said, Who told you that? Who even are you?" And Zetsu laughed and said, "That doesn't matter. I'm here to help you." Danzo was focused on Zetsu, trying to tell if he was lying to him. You know, squinting his eyes to look at him, and Zetsu said, "I can tell you're apprehensive, so I've brought proof." And Zetsu took out a scroll and did a hand sign, and the seal on the scroll poofed into smoke, and out came the male elder of the village, dead. Danzo was surprised at this. He couldn't even speak, and Zetsu said, "I can do this to every other member of the council, if you join me." Danzo now couldn't pass up this offer and said, "But what's the catch?" A smile appeared on Zetsu's face and he said, "Oh, I just need to contract the Sound 4 for a few missions." And Danzo was now scared of what this guy could do. He knows about the Sound 4, that he even has control of them, and he killed an elder without no one in the village knowing. Danzo said sure, but Tsunade would want an explanation of where they are going. Zetsu turned around and started melting into the ground, and he said, "You can think of something." Danzo was now preparing for his seat as the Hokage. The next day, Naruto, Tayuya, Jirobo, Sakan, and Ukon, and Kidomaru appeared in front of Danzo, kneeling, awaiting their mission instructions. And Danzo said to them, "Where's Kimimaru?" And Naruto said, "Oh, he's out on a personal mission for Tsunade." Danzo said, okay, well then, Tsunade wants you to go to the Sand Village and kidnap the Kazekage alive." And Naruto's eyebrow crumpled and said, "Wait, why?" And Danzo said, "Are you trying to question the Hokage?" And he slammed his hands onto the desk. And Naruto looked down and said, "No, I'm not. I just don't know why we're attacking an ally." And Danzo leaned back in his chair and said, "I only tell you what to do. I don't know the situations behind it." And Naruto and the others bowed and said, "Okay, yes, Danzo." So the group went to the village gate and they all looked at each other and said, "Ready?" And they jumped off into the tree to start their journey. 3 days of almost non-stop traveling later, and the five reached the outskirts of the village. Naruto said to them, "Treat everyone like an enemy and remember the mission. We need Gaara alive." And they all nodded and dispersed. Naruto's curse mark spread from his neck to all around his body, and he ran so fast he looked like a blur and took down the guards in seconds. Naruto ran in and started jumping across the buildings to the Sand Hokage's office. To Gaara, he was just doing paperwork in his office and thought how peaceful the world has been lately, but Naruto broke through the window behind him and glass flew at Gaara, but his sand was there to protect him. Naruto ran at Gaara, swiping at him with his sharpened claws, but Gaara's sand was too quick. Gaara stood up and said, "Naruto, why are you doing this?" But he kept silent, and Naruto started using jutsus, but nothing was getting around Gaara's ultimate defense. Naruto said, "Just come without resistance," but Gaara wasn't going to give up on his village. Naruto then went to his final stage of his curse mark, and the 3 Tomoe activated. Naruto said, "I didn't want to do this, but you forced my hand." And Gaara was confused what he was talking about. Then the rest of the members of the Sound 4 came out and did a barrier jutsu, creating a cube similar to the one used in the Hiruzen versus, when he was fighting the other Hokage. That same barrier, but much smaller, to the size of a room. And Tayuya said to Naruto, "Now!" And Naruto did hand signs for lightning style, electric floor, and slammed his hands onto the barrier walls, and multiple lightning bolts started sparking across, surrounding Gaara and eventually electrocuting him to the point where he passed out. Then they lowered the barrier and Naruto took Gaara's unconscious body to the drop-off point Danzo instructed. Naruto waited to see who would come, and they didn't expect it to take 4 whole days. And the Sound 4, they were just waiting in the trees above. That's when they saw an Akatsuki member walking up to the body. It was Pain. Naruto knew of Pain's organization because he's always outside of the village and working with some of the most dangerous shinobi. So Naruto knew from this that Danzo did not tell them any mission from Tsunade, so he was going to finish this since he was the one who started it. While Pain was walking off, Naruto used this time to ambush him, and he jumped down and mounted Pain and started hitting him repeatedly with blows to the face with his second stage of the curse mark activated, and this boosted his strength tremendously to the point where this actually got Pain. These repeated blows to the body destroyed that path of Pain. The rest of the Sound 4 jumped down and congratulate Naruto on defeating such, what they see as a divine being because he has the Rinnegan. But when Naruto looks at the body, the Rinnegan in its eyes began to fade away, because this is only one of Pain's puppets, not its actual body. Jirobo turned and said to Naruto, "Well, we got lucky with that one, so how are you going to take care of the rest?" And Naruto raised an eyebrow wondering, "The rest?" and Jirobo just realized Naruto wasn't with Orochimaru back when he was in the Akatsuki, so they actually know about the different paths of pain. So Jirobo starts to explain, and knowing this, Naruto, he's starting to lose hope quickly because they legitimately got lucky, so how is he going to take down the rest? But that's when a thought came to him, his last chance of hope, the Nine Tails. So fast forward an hour and we see the rest of the Paths of Pain arriving to see nothing but the dead Yahiko puppet on the ground. That's when they hear a roar and Naruto had the Nine Tails chakra bubbling around, forming into the Four Tails. Now Naruto was being influenced by too much of the Kyuubi's chakra, and he's in a berserk state like he was when he was fighting Pain. Naruto was going in, he was too fast for paths like the chakra absorbing path because it couldn't even touch him, so it couldn't react to how quick he was. And Naruto took down paths like the animal path before she could even try summoning anything. And in the end, ripped off the heads of all of the Paths of Pain. And before Naruto could start going after his own teammates, remember I said Tayuya isn't Uzumaki in this, and she made a seal to suppress Naruto's chakra, just like the one Yamato has. So Naruto came back to his senses and Tayuya hugged him out of nowhere and said, "I'm glad you're back, I hate seeing you like that." And Naruto and the others were shocked. Tayuya is never this close with Naruto, and she could sense the awkwardness in the air and backed off, apologizing. Tayuya used her nature chakra to sense where the original body of Pain was, and as she expected, he wasn't that far away. So she led the group to him and Naruto was going to deal with it himself, but Tayuya said, "Leave this to us." And they all walked up and said together, "Combination Jutsu, Great Burial." And the ground beneath the paper tree that Konan made to hide in opened up and caused them to fall in and shut, crushing both the weakened body of Nagato and Konan. Naruto didn't even know they could do this, and Jirobo said, "Don't underestimate us." And Naruto smiled and said, "I won't." Naruto said, "We have to inform Tsunade of Danzo's plans," and they nod and head to the village. This only takes a few days, and when they arrive, they immediately go to her office, and in the office they see Zetsu standing in front of Tsunade. Zetsu had a blade-like weapon pointed at Tsunade, but that's when Naruto stepped in and blocked it. Zetsu's like, "Huh? I thought you were on a mission." And Naruto, it's all coming to him, so Zetsu is the one who told Danzo about it. It's all really starting to make sense. And Zetsu said, "I'll be back." And he melted into the ground. Tsunade was confused. She was like, "What's that? And what's this about him sending you guys on a mission?" So Naruto began to explain everything, like the whole thing that Danzo made them do with the Kazekage and stuff. And Tsunade, she was angry to say the least at Danzo. So she was ready to go over there, but Naruto told her to, calm down, and that she thinks the Akatsuki and Danzo are working together to throw her out of the Hokage seat. And Tsunade saying, "I knew that slimy old man was up to no good." Tsunade looked out the window and thought for a second. She said, "Prepare for the Akatsuki's return. I'll take care of Danzo." Naruto and the Sound Four bowed and they dispersed from the Hokage's office. So Tsunade, what she did, she made her personal Anbu go and fetch Danzo and lock him up and convert the entire Root Anbu to her control. Of course, many of these Root Anbu members were loyal to Danzo, but she would convert them with time. After a brief council meeting with the elders and clan heads, they all decided to sentence Danzo to death. His death broke all the truth seals on the Root Anbu's tongue, if you remember that, so they can actually talk about everything that they've been through to Tsunade. So meanwhile, all this is happening, and Naruto and the Sound Four prepare the village for an attack. They evacuate the people and tell high-ranking Jonin to return from their missions and get all medical ninjas at hospitals. And they waited and waited and waited for 2 weeks with nothing happening. And at this point, the villagers wanted to return to their normal lives because the evacuation centers were so cramped and uncomfortable. But they inevitably came, the Akatsuki, when a massive cloud of smoke appeared in front of the village, showing the members of the Akatsuki, except those that died earlier, Pain and Konan, Deidara, Sasori, Hidan, and Kakuzu, as they were all on missions. So this fight was going to go down in the history books, and Itachi looked at the village and thought how much it's changed. Zabuza whipped out Samehada and was ready to fight, and so was Zetsu and Tobi, but the Leaf had a lot of people on their side. Tsunade, the Sound Four, including Naruto, and some Jonin and Genin, including Sasuke, who was raring to fight his brother since he recently got the 3 Tomoe. And at once, both sides charged at each other. It was absolute madness. Samehada ripped through Kurenai's arm, but Guy came in and stopped him, and their fight turned into one similar to canon. While Naruto and Sasuke were fighting Itachi, Naruto mainly provided support because, well, Sasuke was going all in, because he didn't want to let him take Itachi down. And Itachi frankly wanted Sasuke to win. Zetsu was being double teamed by Tsunade and Jiraiya, who, Tsunade called specifically for this. So this fight raged on for hours until one side was triumphant, the Leaf Village. Their enemy's blood stained the battlefield, but they had to do what had to be done. Sasuke and Naruto ended up being pushed to the point where they unlocked the Mangekyo Sharingan, and Guy fared way better against Samehada and Zabuza since he didn't have any source of water around to aid him. And Tsunade and Jiraiya against Black and White Zetsu, do I really have to explain anything? Yeah, they completely pieced him up, he got destroyed. So from this point, the village was still on high alert. They were sure more members of the Akatsuki was out there, but after a whole year, there was nothing. So they moved on with their lives, and Naruto didn't play a key role in saving the village, so he wasn't praised as highly, but still got his recognition. And after Tsunade's 3 years in the office, she gave it up to Naruto Uzumaki, the 6th Hokage. As Hokage, Naruto would reform the village and bring technology to it by making many deals with the Land of Iron. And this made it one of the most advanced villages, and a lot of people started moving to the Leaf. And family-wise, Naruto settled down with, you guessed it, Tayuya, and they both started to rebuild their clan by having a son. But there was something wrong with him, something sinister about their child. But that is where I'm going to be leaving this one off. I have to leave you guys on the cliffhanger, even in the finale. But anyways, I hope you guys really enjoyed, and if you did, and if you like my content in general, consider subscribing. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next What If.